welcome to a new video. I've just come back from London Comic Con, and yes, I did meet Tom Wilson. It was an absolute privilege. I also met Christopher Lloyd, who played the Doc in the Back to the Future trilogy. Now, I love the Back to the Future trilogy. It's one of the best sci-fi trilogies ever, in my opinion. I love the chemistry between Marty McFly and Emmett Brown, known as the Doc. It was just such a fun trilogy to watch, and the way it's all written and the way it's all set and the props and the special effects are just amazing. And the DeLorean, it's a great idea making that a time machine. The flux capacitor, all these amazing words and actors. And I'm just going to be talking about Wilson, who plays Biff Tannen in the Back to the Future trilogy. And he's such a nice guy in real life. I met him yesterday. He asked me what my name was, and I said, Danny K, subscribe. I didn't really say subscribe. He had a nice chat with me. I shook his hand. Looks pretty much the same as he did in the films, except for he's a bit older. But we all have to get out one day. Person, and he was very friendly to everybody, not like in the films when he's bullying everybody. And I really like the character Biff Tannen. He is the bad guy of the Back to the Future trilogy. He makes Marty McFly and Emmett Brown's life difficult. And when he steals the almanac in part 2, he makes himself rich like Donald Trump. There's a comparison right there. They look similar to each other. No, they don't. It's just a funny little idea. Yeah, so we're going to talk about part 1 first. He's very dominant and they always get into fights. He chases after him and he gets away with the skateboards. I wanted to tell you the basis of the film. Basically, Biff, at the beginning of the Back to the Future trilogy, he is picking on Marty's father, George McFly, all the time, and he's very wimpy. Then he goes back. He doesn't mean to, but the Libyans are chasing him after shooting Emmett Brown. So he goes back in time, 1955, and then being on the clock tower of Hill Valley. That's the only way they have to get back, but then he has to stay in 1955 for a bit. So he tries to get George McFly to go with Lorraine because he's supposed to crash into the car, George McFly, but Marty goes into it instead. So that's how that works out, and he has to go to Enchantment Under the Sea Dance. But there's Biff making their life hard, picking on them all the time, picking on George. Obviously Marty sticks up for him, and he has to go to school for a bit too. And yeah, he's such a great character, and he's very good at acting mean. And then Marty changes time and he plays a wimpy version of himself, and that shows you what a good actor he is. So let's talk about part 2. He plays Griff, who is Biff's son, and he plays the older version of himself, who eventually goes back in time to give the other Biff the almanac. And yeah, I really do like Griff. He's such an awesome character, and he ends up getting put in prison after Marty framing him for going into the clock tower windows. And yeah, it's really good, him playing all the different versions of himself. I find it very clever. And when he plays the old version of himself, he goes back, tries to persuade him, and when they're both in the car arguing, calling each other butthead, I find that very funny too. And Biff owns everything and he keeps winning money, what earned him the name the luckiest man in the world. So then he has to go back to 1955 and get the almanac off him. What's really funny to see that. And he tries to run over Marty with his car. And then we're going to talk about part 3. And then he plays Mad Dog Tannen, who is a relative of the Tannens, and he's a cowboy. And if anybody calls him Mad Dog, you end up getting beat up. And he wants to shoot Emmett because he didn't pay him this money. And he goes back in time because he gets struck by lightning with the DeLorean. It's worth watching the film. It's sometimes very hard to explain. Let's just get really good cowboy. He makes such a good cowboy, such a good actor. And then they have a standoff at the end, and like the Clint Eastwood, and he takes iron off him, what acts as a bulletproof vest. He whacks him over the face, and he goes into the manure, which he goes in manure in every single film. So Mad Dog Tannen is a very good character too. So he plays all those characters in the Back to the Future trilogy, and then he goes back into the future to see his life, and then he makes everything nice, and it ends with Doc on a train with his beloved Clara. So yeah, that's just a video basically about, I really do like Biff Tannen as a character. Tom Wilson's a really nice guy in real life. I met him and it was a privilege. Thank you for letting me meet you, and thank you for being there. I've got a video coming up on Doc soon, and a review of Back to the Future stuff, and maybe a Michael J. Fox video, and lots more. So thank you for watching. See you next one. Goodbye.